John now stands at that door, and he is about to describe to you and to me this new Jerusalem he's about to see. This is an artist rendition, but I think it's pretty clear from what the book describes as to what we are seeing here. This is 1,400 miles, or 1,400, I think it's 1,400 miles high, 1,400 miles wide. It's a square, 1,400 miles. That's big. It's a giant cube. To stop and consider how tall that is, how many miles that is, that's taller than the space station floating above your head. Okay? If the space station that's up there right now, the manned space station, which is in outer space, if it was to bump into this thing, it would bump into it right about here. That's how tall this thing is. Now, again, in our current condition, we find that hard to believe. But remember, God's redoing everything. It's all new heaven and a new earth. So what's above us and what's below us is all different. And so it's going to be a tremendously, it's not like we're going to be hanging out in outer space and not able to breathe if we go to the top of this thing. Everything is different. That world is nothing like the world in which we currently live. It can house a building that's 1,400 miles square, or 1,400 miles cubed, I should say. Massive, massive. So John, first of all, wants to share with you and I what he sees. And here's his vision, and he wants us to know two things, what he sees and what he hears about it, okay? John always wants to tell us what he sees. Now, this is his eyes. This is what he's beholding, and this is what he's reporting. Hey, guess what? I saw this. All right. All right. You saw it. And remember, his whole testimony is, I saw and I heard. I saw and I heard. And so can we trust him? Well, he saw it and he heard it. So first of all, he tells us about this new heaven and new earth. I saw a new heaven and a new earth. Remember, it's not just a new earth, it's a new heaven. It's not just a new city, although we're calling this the New Jerusalem, which is probably going to sit where the old one is. Everything is new. This Jerusalem looks nothing like the Jerusalem you went to today. Okay, nothing like it. It's completely new. And so the earth can't look anything like the earth we're used to inhabiting now. It's completely new. And the heaven can't look anything like it was. It's completely new. For one thing, the devil's not up there anymore. In our lifetime, the devil has always been up in heaven. He has always been the accuser of the brethren. People thought the devil got kicked out. He ain't got kicked out. We're there when that battle in heaven takes place and he gets kicked out. He doesn't kick out to the last 42 months of the tribulation period. He keeps talking, 42. He got kicked out of heaven. He's mad because he's got 42 months left. And he knows his time is short. And then he gets bound for 1,000 years and then he gets let out. He does a final rebellion and he's sent to hell. He knows he ain't got a chance, but he tries anyway. So John, what does he see? Well, I saw a new heaven. I saw a new earth. For the first heaven and the first earth had passed away. Everything that we hold on to, everything we look at and we see as near and dear is going to be destroyed, is going to be wiped out. Come on in and join us, please. Thank you, sir. So this new heaven and this new earth, hey, guess what? It needs to be new because the old one is done away. Everything that people are fighting and dying for, everything that everybody's trying to hold on to, it's all gone. And why? Why did I try so hard to have so much money? Hey, God paves the streets of heaven with gold. It's not worth anything. But people are selling their souls for that which is useless and worthless in eternity. So he sees the new heaven and the new earth, and then he sees this city in the second verse. He sees a new city coming down. He sees it descending out of heaven. And I, John, pinching himself to make sure he's really there. And I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. He literally sees this thing. He sees the new heaven, the new earth, and then he sees this new Jerusalem come out of heaven to our new earth. I saw it. Then after seeing these things, which is quite a spectacular thing that he saw, somewhat like this, I saw it coming out. That's big. And I have a couple of maps thrown in here just so you could see in a minute how big this thing really is in your mind. Now he wants to tell us what he hears. First of all, John says, you know what I hear? I hear the words of angels. Angels are talking. And what are the angels saying? Well, one of the angels says God himself will mingle with his people in this new city. Right now, God's up in heaven, but he will be with you and me in this new city as well. Verse 3, and I heard a great voice out of heaven saying, behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and he will dwell with them, and they will be his people, and God himself will be with them, and he will be their God. That's the first thing he hears this angel say. Hey, God's going to live with you in this new Jerusalem, this new city. How great is that? He's going to dwell, not like he does today, not spiritually, but a very real and physical world in which we will live and share and breathe. And he will rule and reign over us from that new Jerusalem. Then they continue to say more things. And then he says, remember he's listening on the angels. And then another angel says, God himself will minister to his people. Look at verse 4. And God will wipe away all tears from their eyes. And there will be no more death, nor mourning, nor crying, nor anything that will make pain. And the first things are passed away. Pain is a thing of the past. We're all new. Nothing hurts anymore, which would be nice. Okay? I probably won't shake anymore. I say probably, you know I won't. So everything will be made brand new. So God's going to be there. He's going to, you can imagine if when you were little and you got hurt and your mom would come by and she'd stop your tears and kiss your boo-boo. And you can imagine if God is there and he's able to. Of course, you're not going to cry. But if you did, if something could make its way in there and offend you, God will be ready there to wipe away all your tears. So that's rather amazing. But that's not all he hears, okay? This is really something. Because he hears the angels talk about God. But then he hears God himself. Here's the words now of God. What has God got to say during all this time, right? Well, God has a lot to say. God says, first of all, I will be the father to all the saved. Look at this, verses 5 through 8. And he, sitting on the throne, said, behold, I make all things new. Notice how often they keep talking about this new. It's new. It's new. Behold, I will make all things new. Thank you. Let me see. Oh, here you go. Okay. I will make all things new. And he said to me, write, for these words are true and faithful. What are the true and faithful words? And he said to me, it is done. We've heard him say that before. Just what is done? Everything. We heard him say it from the cross. We heard him say it when he cast the devil into hell. And now again, at the end, as he brings down this new heaven, this new earth, again we hear him echo those words. It is done. I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. To him who thirsts, I will give the fountain of water of life freely. He who overcomes will inherit all things, and I will be his God, and he will be my son. He says those things to people who are suffering. Mikey, would you just make sure? Okay. I am Alpha and Omega. I am the beginning and the end. For him who thirsts, I will give the fountain of water of life freely. Remember, that's promised back in the Old Testament from the Garden of Eden on through. There was waters that went out, and then there was the tree. These are pictures from Garden of Eden. He who overcomes will inherit all things. Now, remember, people are suffering who are reading these stories, who are reading this. They're talking about people who will be suffering, people who will be hurting. Remember the martyrs and all those folks. And so stay at it, because here's, okay, you've got things in this world to lose. I'll grant you that. And you may lose everything in this life. But look what you've got to gain. You've got to gain me as your personal friend. You get to gain, imagine living next door to Jesus. I mean, that's quite a gain. You know, I mean, we think it'd be great just because we could live next door to this young lady. But imagine if my neighbor was Jesus. You go to borrow a cup of sugar, and Jesus is there and lets you have it. I mean, man, I tell you, things would be good. And so he said, listen, I know you're suffering. Because remember, this was written 2,000 years ago. This was written when the church was just beginning, when the church was going through its martyrdom stage, when there were those first 10 persecutions that we didn't think we'd survive. People didn't think they'd make, when the might of the Roman army came marching against the church, which was just in its infancy, it looked like things were done. But you know, within 100 years, there were so many Christians in the Roman army that they couldn't persecute the Christians anymore. There were just too many people. And half the Roman army had become Christian by that point. Amazing how that, and what did God give us to do that with? He gave us love. Love is our greatest weapon. We could love people into heaven. We could love them with the gospel story. We can't fight against them. You know, we can get so angry and so mad, but we forget that anger is not the weapon that God gave us. Love is the weapon that God gave us. And so long as we have an open and loving heart, now maybe we can't tolerate all that they do, and we don't agree with what they do, but we still have to love sinners. And we have to represent to them the best we know how Jesus Christ, and to tell them of the gospel. And we have to be faithful to do that when it's popular and when it's not. And so God's word to them is, listen, hey, I will be a minister to your people. I will stop the pain, and I will be there for you. I am the Alpha and the Omega. But he says a little bit more, too, that John wants us to be aware of. Now, remember, this is God talking. He will be a foe. Now, he talked about being our friend. But look at the opposite side of that in verse 8. But the fearful and the unbelieving and the abominable and murderers and whoremongers and sorcerers and idolaters and all liars. Boy, I don't think anybody in Washington is going. And all liars will have their part in the lake burning with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. So if you don't want to come to me because you love me, then how about you come to me because you fear me? Here's what I will do for those who love me, but this is what I'm going to do to all you who rejected me. Now, he's already done it. This verse right here, by the time John is hearing it, and the time in which the new heaven and the new earth, this is past tense. It's already happened. But this is being recorded for those of us who are living through these times, so that we might remember there is heaven to gain, but there is hell to lose. And we want to make sure we lose that aspect of it. We don't want to be this fearful. We don't want to be the unbelieving. We don't want to be the murderer, the whoremonger, and the sorcerer. But fearful and unbelieving and abominable murderers, whoremongers, sorcerers, idolaters, those who worship something other than God, and all liars will have their part in the burning with fire and brimstone. Mostly the liars here are false teachers, lying about the cross. Oh, there is another Jesus. There is another way. You don't have to trust that. Most of Christianity, what we would call Orthodox Christianity, or not Orthodox Christianity, but modern Christianity, the mainstream Christianity, doesn't believe in the cross. It's amazing, but those old churches, the Presbyterians who under Billy Sunday led to a huge revival across America, the Methodist Church coming out of England, worldwide revival, don't believe in Jesus Christ anymore. Don't believe that the way the cross leads home. It's crazy. And it happened very quickly. They're more involved in the current political affairs than they are the gospel of Jesus Christ. That's why you can drive by and see them waving their pride flags. Pride in what? Oh, they're proud of their sins. But are they proud of Jesus Christ? Do they make mention of him anymore? No. Not even mentioned. And he definitely isn't a savior, and he definitely isn't a redeemer. So he's going to describe the city itself. It's filled with God's glory, and it shines like precious jewels and pure gold. Look at the verses right down here, 9 through 27. We're going to be at in verse 9. And one of the 7 angels who held, this was a long time ago. This angel, 1,000 years ago or better, held one of the vials. He's still hanging around. One of the angels who poured out the vials comes back over. Remember, he talked to one of them. Whether it's the same angel who poured out the vial or not, or another one of the angels who poured out another one of the 7, he comes over and he talks to John. And one of the 7 angels who had the 7 vials full of the 7 last plagues came to me and talked with me, saying, "Come here, I will show you the bride." Now, come here, I will show you the bride, the Lamb's wife. And he carried me away in the Spirit to a great and high mountain, and showed me the great city, the holy Jerusalem, descending out of heaven from God. Remember, he saw that earlier, but he's seeing it again as he is looking at it. And he's going to go and visit the city. Having the glory of God, and the light was like a stone most precious, even like a jasper stone, clear as crystal. And the city was pure gold like clear glass. Gold can be thinned so much. And in fact, gold, if you remember your old astronaut days, that was gold on their visor. They would meet gold out across the visor to protect them from the sun. But it was transparent. It was gold that was beaten so thinly that you could see through it. And so when he talks about this gold being transparent as glass, that's how pure it is. It doesn't have that yellowness in it. Everything is, I mean, you could see right through this gold. Amazing, this city. So he talks about this city that he spots, and then not only that, but then you can see the gates and the walls about this city. The gates are of 12 gates. Now, this is going to be very familiar to his Jewish readers, because remember when they camped around this big square that you and I are looking at, and there's 3 on one side, 3 on this side, 3 on that side, and 3 on the... Whenever they set up the temple, or particularly the tabernacle, as they wandered through the wilderness, the tabernacle would sit in the middle, and there'd be 3 tribes on this side, 3 tribes on that side, 3 tribes over here, and 3 tribes on this side. So this formation is very, very familiar to the Jewish mind. And it's given out how they would have been laid out around the tabernacle. So it's not surprising then that he lays out this holy city in the same pattern that he laid them out before. So they look at these gates, and there's 12 of these gates for the 12 tribes of Israel, and their names are written on each of these gates. The gates were 12 angels having names inscribed, and the names of the tribes of the sons of Israel. And the east were 3, the north were 3, the south were 3, the west were 3, and the 12 gates were of great pearl. Each gate was 1 pearl. These are massive gates with a massive pearl. Again, we're not supposed to imagine anything like on this world. This is God's creation. And John is looking at it as he visits this city. Now he's going to give to us not only the walls of it. The walls were high and had the gates. They had 12 foundations. And the 12 foundations were the 12 apostles of the Lamb, and the foundations of the wall were jasper. So you had the 12 tribes on the gates. You had on the walls and the foundation then, you had the 12 apostles given on these things. Now the size of the dimension I mentioned to you earlier already. Each of these foundations are laid with different stones. We're not going to go through all that. It's made of pure gold, like transparent glass, and the streets of the city were pure gold. Pretty amazing. The worship that goes on in this city is also mentioned. And all nations bring their glory and their honor to the temple. And they shall bring the glory and the honor of the nations into this city. So all the world gathers together at this one particular point whenever they want to bring honor and glory. There's folk living throughout the world, but everybody comes to the holy city when they want to worship God. Well, who wouldn't want to? Because guess where God is? I don't know that I'll ever wander away from the holy city. I think I'd be pretty content to stay right there. But apparently, if you want to, there are nations even afterwards, and they're all coming into this particular city. Kind of like that. All right, he's going to describe. Now, there are, John has described to you everything he's seen. He's described the city, the walls, the circumference, the height, everything about it. But there are some amazing things that he does not see, and he wants to mention 4 things that he notices are missing in this city. The city that has everything doesn't have 4 things. Imagine that. What could be missing? Take a guess. What do you think is missing in a city that has everything? Well, he's going to take a look and see. First of all, there's no temple in that particular city. And I saw no temple. Well, he just said that the nations of the world would come to gather together. And you would think, remember when we were in heaven? What did we see in heaven? We saw the temple. Remember the angels, they brought that judgment out of the temple of God in heaven, didn't they? Is there any more need for judgment to come out from the temple? No more need for temple. So is there any reason for man to have to bring a sacrifice to God? The Lamb was slain from the foundation of the world. Sin has completely been removed, remember. There is no more sin. There are no more sinners. There is no more devil. There is no rebellion. There is no hate. So there's no need for a temple anymore. Because the only people who are in this new city are people who love God. And we love Him all the time. We don't only love Him when we come together in this church. We come together so that we might be taught. But when I'm at home, I'm just as much in love with God as I am in here. And when I'm talking with people at work, I'm just as much in love with God as I am in this place. And so we don't need a temple. And John notices it because the temple is the center of Jewish life. And when that temple is gone, John noticed it. Hey, because remember, he's been witnessing that temple. He's been up in heaven, and he has witnessed the temple that was in heaven. He knew of the temple that was down on the earth. So for John's life, the temple has been the central part. They went in. Remember, him and Peter nearly got stoned to death for raising a man or healing a man outside the temple. Silver and gold have I none, but such as I have give I thee. In the name of Jesus of Nazareth, rise up and walk. Beat those 2 guys for doing that. Because the man was hopping up and down outside the temple because he just got healed. And so the temple was an important part. The apostles were continually going in and out of the temple until its destruction and until they were chased out by persecution. So John says, you know what? There's something strange about this new Jerusalem. The center of Jerusalem is the temple. And the new Jerusalem doesn't have a temple. Things are different. Things have changed. The new world isn't anything like this old world. It doesn't even have a temple. What else does John notice this new temple doesn't have? Well, I'll tell you this much. It doesn't have a sun. You and I look up every morning when we wake up, and the sun's usually coming through our window and waking us up. And we watch at night as our sun actually goes over that way and then sets. So we watch it rise and we watch it set. We're used to the sun. Now remember, the sun wasn't created until the 4th day of creation. So where did the light come from before the sun? There was plant life, plants and animals on the 3rd day. Sunlight doesn't come on till the 4th day. And so again, God demonstrating His strength and His power. There is no sun. You don't need it for light. Because God Himself, there is no need of the sun. And the city had no need of the sun nor the moon. And they don't need to shine on it. For the glory of God illuminates it. And the lamp is the Lamb. Isn't that what Jesus said? I am the light of this world. You'll never be in darkness, not so long as I'm around. So the Lamb is the lamp of the world. And the nations and those who are saved will walk in the light, and the King of the earth will bring His glory and honor into it. Jesus was right all along. He is the light of the world. And with Him there is no darkness, not even a shadow of turning. But John notices something else. Those are rather major. As a Jew, you notice the fact that the temple was missing. As a human being, you notice that the sun and the moon are missing. There's no evil, there's no impurity. And there shall in no way, God says, and there shall in no way enter into it any that defiles, or any making an abomination or a lie, but only those who are written in the Lamb's book of life. And this is the warning again. If you're not in the Lamb's book of life, you're not in heaven. I don't care, you're good and you're evil. Remember, the good and evil deeds are in a separate book. That when I was a young man, I was told, or actually a boy, you had to weigh your good and your bad. But that's a completely set of books. There's a different book where your name is written down or not written down, and that book is the book that allows you into heaven. The good and the evil is what you're judged out of later. The people whose names are written down in the Lamb's book of life never get judged, because Jesus Christ has paid for all our sin. But if you're not written in this book, you don't get into heaven. If you have to read your name out of these two books, you're going to hell. Well, there's the good things that you did. You're on your way to hell. There's the bad things you did. You're still on your way to hell. If when you get there, and there's 3 books laid out, we saw that, the Lamb's book of life and the good and evil books. If the angel says, oh, hey, why don't you come and read out of these 2 books, you're in trouble, just know it. But if he reads your name and you're in the Lamb's book of life, you ain't got to worry about anything. Because Jesus Christ, it's all under the blood. As far as the east is from the west, we read. He buried it beneath the oceans and it will be remembered no more. He has gotten rid of all your sin. The Lamb washed it all away. So work, and that's his final words to us. And those are written in the Lamb's book of life. That's where we have to get to. That's where we want to be. Lamb's book of life. But only those who are written in the Lamb's book of life, only those, only. I am the way, the truth, and the life, and no man gets unto the Father but by me. So only those who have their name written in my book, the Lamb's book of life, get into heaven. Period. Do you see at the end of that sentence? Period. I think Jesus meant business. So here's our conclusion then. First of all, the cowards. We had mentioned them already. The cowards are the fearful ones who abandon Christ at the threat of the beast from that time. Anything that separates us from Jesus Christ makes us a coward. Cowards are fearful ones who abandon Christ at the threat of the beast. They fear persecution so badly that they choose temporary safety over eternal life. They are put in the same list as the unbelieving. They're put there with the corrupt. They're listed with murderers. They're listed with the immorals. They're listed with idolaters. They're listed with the liars and those who practice the magic arts. Wow. Just because I'm afraid? Yeah. Because you don't trust God. This world means so much to you that you'd rather live in it than to live with Him. So he says, cowards. Boom. Nothing to do with you. By contrast, then, the people who are victorious, or those who endure to the end, they will receive the blessings that God promised. To follow Christ requires boldness and bravery. To stand for Him when opposition occurs, pray for courage to do what is right no matter what pressures you face. Those who can endure the testing of evil and remain faithful will be rewarded by God. Literally, you'll be rewarded by having God in your life, in your home, and you'll be in His. I've faced in my time some small persecutions. I've had people threaten me from time to time. I think at least 3-4 times I had a gun placed to my head. Literally placed there for the evil deeds that I had done. Sometimes for preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ, and folks don't like it. But I stood for Jesus. And I'd be willing to. And sometimes that stunned them. And I would tell them, well, I know where I'm going to go. I will be, if you pull that trigger, I'll be in heaven. Where will you spend your eternity? And more than once, I've had an opportunity to share Jesus Christ and win them to Christ. Once in the Philippines, where they threatened my life like that, I later went back and built a church. Rented the building, built a church. Fellowship Fundamental Baptist Church. Still there to this day. All because somebody threatened me. It's amazing what we can do if God is with us, and the courage that we have when God is on the throne of our life. And so we have to remember that. That's the whole point that God was trying to get us to. He's trying to get us into this new heaven and this new earth. But he can't have any cowards there. He's got to have people who stand for him. So stand for Jesus Christ. Take your opportunity to be his.